Hey, how's it going? I'm going to fit in this video rules for writers and tools for teaching because both of them kind of have minimal pages and the things I spoke about before. Let's take a look first at, this is class 4 here. Let's take a look at here for rules for writers. So on page 277, there's section 30 here on sentence structure. And this is important, obviously, for people that teach ELL because a lot of the verbs are omitted in a lot of the Asian languages, as you may know. There's a lot of rules here. A lot of rules, and as native speakers, we would know how this works. But when people are putting them together, they don't know why you're putting in certain things. You can't repeat a pronoun, with a noun in the same sentence, or things like that. But it just describes it all. What I do for this with my students is I jump straight to the activities here. Exercise 30-3 on 284, and I find that pretty useful. To work with them that. It's also I do the one on 30-4 on page 285 if I have time. So you may want to look at that. As you probably know, the answers to these exercises are in the back of the book, and it's good to work with that. The other thing in RFW is the part here on the introduction. And there's really not that much on section 2 that I pointed out in the book there, but I do want to draw you back to the video that I made on how to write a paper. So if you haven't seen that, please go back and see that. It's listed under resources, videos, and scroll all the way down past the days, and it says writing a paper. It takes about a minute or two to download it, but I think it's got a good visual guideline on the introduction, on the whole paper. So just looking at the introduction again for a sec, this is interesting because you kind of funnel people in here. You've got like a hook, and then you've got an orientation, and then you've got a focus, and then you've got your thesis statement. So you got your attention grabber, and just like I said in the video, if you're talking about studying abroad, let's think about something else. I guess maybe video games for kids. You get some hook there, not a joke because there's always someone doesn't understand it, or maybe it offends somebody, but a statistic, an interesting fact, contrary to popular belief, something like that. So a hook will get the attention. Video games, actually they help out with cognitive skills or whatever. And then once you have the hook, people's attention, and then you've got the orientation here, like you want to say something like, now you're going to talk about, video games actually, playing video games improve children's cognitive skills, despite what many people think, but I don't know. And that's kind of your orientation there. Now your focus is, this being said, there are certain games and certain activities that promote these cognitive skills, and then you kind of focus on that. And then you want to move in a little more explanation, and then you want to give your thesis statement because you're kind of following them down into the thesis statement. And then if your thesis statement, if it's I'm just making this up off the top of my head, but if your thesis statement is to show that certain video games promote improve cognitive skills, that's when you're going to say your statement right here. Even though you kind of put it in the focus at the beginning because you're introducing the idea. Here you want to be really specific about, what you're going to say, and make sure it's broad enough that you can take topic sentences off that for each one of your 2 or 3 or 4 paragraphs, or however long it's going to be. And once again, that was just a quick sketch there. But take a look at the video, please, on the writing a paper video. Let's take a look at tools for teaching. There's just a couple pages here. Learning styles and preferences. I just want to mention this. I've had a couple of conversations with people about this, about Howard Gardner's, different learnings, different ways of thinking. He's got a lot of his idea of multiple intelligences. I gave you a link for that. At the first class, I also gave you a couple links, and one of the links there was how Howard Gardner's multiple intelligence is not a methodology for teaching. No, it's just basically different people think in different ways, and a lot of people may think it's far-fetched. I've heard some people say that, but on pages 274 and 275, they talk about models of learning styles. Kolb's learning styles is interesting. The different taxonomy of models: visual, oral, read, write, kinesthetic. A lot of these are kind of what Gardner says. and thinking styles also. So there's a lot of different theories, but the bottom line here, in my opinion, is people do think in different ways. And bouncing back to what you're saying, to what she's saying here, learning styles and preferences, page 273. Vary your teaching methods, assignments, and learning activities. Great idea. Do a bunch of different things that have to do with movement, that have to do with visual, that have to do with drawing, with graphs, with mind maps, with intercommunication, with peer teaching, with mini debates, with a lot of those different learning techniques that I put up there, the daily innovations that we're working on. Give exams that call in different cognitive skills. Not the same thing all the time, or maybe you have an exam with different, you have different styles in there. You've got like an essay, you've got multiple choice, you've got, compare and contrast, you've got, eliminate the one that's not supposed to be there. I don't know, but there's just a lot of different styles like that. Encourage students to value different learning styles and orientations. Great. Yes, so tie that totally into what Gardner says. And jumping ahead to page 276, refer interested students to self-scored surveys. Explain the value of knowing about learning styles to your students. So yeah, students, there are a lot of different learning styles. There's not just one way. What way of my teaching can help you learn better? And once again, it's not a methodology. It's just you're varying what you're doing. So take a look at those. Take a look at those links there. The one for today under assignments, and also the one from, I think it was the first class, about how it's not actually a teaching methodology. But I did have this one activity where I kind of created, I've done this a couple of times, where I have the students, like, I'll take like 4 or 5 of the different intelligences here from Gardner, or different styles in general, and I'll have the same lesson, and I'll ask the students to work in groups and teach that according to a different intelligence. So if you're doing, say, a novel, if you're English class or a language class and you're doing a novel, some people will act out the novel. Some people will create dialogues in the novel. Some people will do an analysis of the novel. Some people will do more of a have to do with breaking it down into vocabulary. Other people will do things that have to do with spatial. They'll draw pictures. Other people will do things that have to do with existential learning. They'll do things that are more philosophical, that make more connections to other things. So yeah, there's a lot of different things you can do with that. I think these particular pages, they're brief, but here are tools for teaching, but they're also very practical.